Let's talk about the situation we have. We went through the cool down in the residential market over the past couple of years. Residential is heating up again. We know that the big cities are attracting a lot of newcomers, and we know that the jobless rate is low.
Yes.
This sounds to me like a recipe for success in commercial property.
It is a very good recipe for success in the creation and operation of Workspace. And what we're seeing in Montreal, in Toronto, and in Vancouver is demand for Workspace that actually exceeds the available supply, with the result that there's very material upward pressure on rental rates, especially in Toronto and Vancouver, but also materially now in the city of Montreal. Calgary continues to be working its way through a cyclical downturn, but our belief is that Calgary has bottomed and is beginning to show signs of recovery, driven, interestingly enough, by tech, media, information type users.
Really?
In that
Because you talk
marketplace.
Calgary and you talk energy, and the reason why we saw those high vacancies in the commercial space is because of the drubbing that energy had taken, but the strength's not going to come from there.
In my view, the recovery in Calgary will be driven in part by the tech, advertising, media, and information sector. We are developing TELUS Sky in Calgary jointly with TELUS and Westbank. We're now 62% leased in the office component, which under the circumstances we're very pleased with. Interestingly enough, the most recent user is a very large tech firm indigenous to Calgary that is growing. And they took either 60 or 80,000 square feet in that particular building, which is a very significant commitment for Calgary. So our view is the tech sector is going to help the recovery. Whether they'll drive it dramatically remains to be seen, but they're certainly going to help the recovery in the city of Calgary.
Given having those kind of tenants, tech tenants, even in the heart of oil country, do you take sort of a 10-year view of this economy and what kind of economy it's going to be? A lot of people keep telling us services, services, services. We obviously had been oil and gas, we had been lumber, we have been many things. Do you think that's the trend that's going to play out through the 2020s?
I do. I think in the inner cities of major Canadian cities today, what we're seeing is population growth, but the bulk of the population growth are men and women who bring skills that can be useful and valued to knowledge-based organizations. So I do think we're seeing Canada evolve as a service-based economy, and I think tech, advertising, media, and information, which is an acronym that's been, or a description that's been put together for the kind of tenants that are driving the economy today, is really where the future is, and really underpins the future of the cities.
I know Allied has been getting into mixed-use developments as well, whether there's some residential thrown in there. You're a partner with The Well, right?
We are.
Huge redevelopment in Toronto. That seems to be a bit of a retail strategy that, as we know, bricks and mortar retail comes under some pressure from online competition. Just make sure you have your retail in the heart of a big city.
Well, that's right. I think urban retail is evolving positively. I can't comment as knowledgeably about suburban and other forms of retail, but in the inner city, retail is evolving, is playing an important role, and certainly in the city of Toronto, the city of Montreal, and the city of Vancouver is actually growing in terms of income producing potential and in terms of the kind of interesting users that are attracted to retail space today. And they're generally users that offer more than just goods. They offer experiential, if you will, context within which to buy goods or services. And it's interesting how it's evolving, and it is, in my opinion, one of the bright spots, not necessarily the only one, but one of the bright spots in the retail real estate sector today.
You talked about high demand in commercial. You talked about low availability. Sounds a lot like the residential market. Does this make it more challenging then for Allied to find that new opportunity? I know you're redeveloping something right around the corner. You and I talked about it several years ago on the location. But does it get more challenging if people start saying, "Hey, I want a little more for what you're offering me for this property"?
Here's what's really interesting. Last year, 2019, Allied allocated $800 million to acquisitions. and about $450 million to development. So even in the context of an environment where there's a tremendous amount of capital pursuing a limited number of opportunities, we were able to allocate what for us is a vast amount of capital in a strategically coherent way. And I think that's a function of years and years of programmatic effort on our part to serve our customers better. And I think more than anything else, that's what allowed us to deploy a huge amount of capital last year and gives us a fair bit of confidence that we'll deploy a similarly large amount of capital in 2020. It's because the demand for what we provide in the urban center of major Canadian cities is so high, and I think we've spent years trying to provide it effectively. So we were able to acquire a tremendous amount last year, even though there's lots of competition for everything.
Interesting stuff. Thanks for joining us.
Good to be here.
Michael Emory is the CEO of Allied Properties REIT.